Meet this guy. He makes $62,000 a year. After taxes, insurance, his student loans, and the lease on a car he chose because of how it would make him look. He has about $11 left in his checking account. Tonight, he's taking a woman to dinner, a woman he's been seeing for 3 weeks. He's already spent $1,400 on her, flowers delivered to her office, a weekend at a boutique hotel she mentioned once, casually on their second date. A necklace not extravagant, but not insignificant because she said she liked the colour of the stone in a shop window. She didn't ask for any of it. He offered. Every time. Eagerly, almost desperately. And here's the part that should trouble you. Not the spending. People spend money on people they care about. That's human. That's beautiful, even no. What should trouble you is why. Because if you truly asked him, at 2 a.m, alone, with no audience, he would eventually, reluctantly, in a voice quieter than you've ever heard from him, admit something that millions of men around the world carry like a stone sewn into the lining of their chest. He doesn't believe he's enough without it.
Excuse me.
Let's start with a number. In 2023, a study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that men in the early stages of romantic relationships spend on average 63% more on non-essential purchases than men who are single or in established long-term partnerships. 63%. On dining, grooming, fashion, gifts, experiences, anything that might function as evidence. Evidence of value, evidence of worthiness. The researchers called it romantic impression management. The financial industry calls it lifestyle inflation. Sociologists call it performative provision. But there's a simpler term, one that cuts closer to the wound. The validation tax. The validation tax is not a line item on anyone's budget. No one writes it down. No one tracks it in a spreadsheet, and that's precisely what makes it so dangerous. It's the cumulative financial cost of trying to earn love through material proof, the silent, unexamined belief that who you are must be supplemented by what you can provide, purchase, and display. And it is bankrupting a generation of men. Not just financially, emotionally, psychologically, relationally, but to understand why men pay it, we have to understand where the invoice comes from. For most of recorded human civilization, masculinity has been defined not primarily by character, emotional intelligence, or capacity for intimacy, but by utility. What can you build? What can you kill? What can you provide? Anthropologists trace this to our earliest social contracts. In subsistence economies, a male's value to a potential mate and to the broader community was almost entirely functional. Could you hunt? Could you defend? Could you secure resources? And for thousands of years, this framework worked not because it was just or complete, but because survival demanded it. When your primary concern is not starving, the person who brings food has intrinsic value. The equation was brutal, but clear. Provision equals worth. But here's what happened. The world changed. The survival equation dissolved. Women entered the workforce. Dual-income households became the norm. Financial independence became not just possible for women, but expected, celebrated, and structurally supported. By every rational measure, the old contract I provide, therefore I am worthy of love, should have been renegotiated. Updated, released, it wasn't. Instead, it went underground. It moved from the conscious to the subconscious, from the spoken to the assumed. The behaviour of provision persisted long after the necessity of provision disappeared, and in that gap between what the world now is and what men were taught to believe, the validation tax was born. The architecture of not enough worth keeping. Listen to that phrase. Not worth loving. Not worth knowing. Worth keeping as though he were an object on a shelf whose price tag determines whether he gets returned. Marcus's story is not an outlier, it is a pattern. A 2022 survey by Lending Tree found that 41% of men admitted to spending money they didn't have to impress a romantic partner. 41%. Nearly half. And those are only the men who admitted it. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances reveals that single men between the ages of 25 and 40 carry an average of $7,400 more in credit card debt than their female counterparts. Financial therapists report that male clients overwhelmingly cite romantic relationships as the primary driver of their unsustainable spending. But the validation tax isn't just about dinner tabs and designer gifts. It operates on multiple tiers. Tier 1, direct spending. The dinners, the trips, the gifts, the experience is the most visible layer. Tier 2, lifestyle inflation. The apartment you can't afford because it projects success. The car that signals arrival. The wardrobe that whispers, "I have my life together," to anyone within visual range. Not bought for pleasure, bought for positioning. Tier 3, opportunity cost. The investments not made. The savings not built, the career risks not taken because financial margin has been entirely consumed by the performance of adequacy. A 2021 analysis by the National Bureau of Economic Research estimated that men who overspend in early relationships delay wealth-building milestones, home ownership, retirement savings, entrepreneurial ventures by an average of 7 years. 7 years of compound interest. 7 years of equity vanished into the performance. And Tier 4, the most devastating and most invisible, emotional debt, the resentment that builds silently when generosity is not reciprocated with the validation it was designed to purchase, the transactional undercurrent that poisons intimacy, the quiet, corrosive thought, "After everything I've done for you." Because here is the cruel paradox at the heart of the validation tax, it doesn't work. In 2019, researchers at the University of Texas and the University of Michigan conducted a landmark study across 4 controlled experiments involving over 1,600 participants. They wanted to answer a deceptively simple question: does spending more money in courtship actually increase romantic attraction? The answer was definitive. No. In fact, excessive early spending decreased perceived attractiveness in the majority of female respondents. It triggered suspicion, not admiration. Women in the study used phrases like trying too hard, compensating, and perhaps most revealingly, what does he think is wrong with him? Let that land. The very behavior men use to prove they're enough communicates to the other person that they believe they are not enough. And like all addictions, it has a tolerance curve. What impressed her last month won't impress her this month. The bar rises, the spending rises, the debt rises, and somewhere beneath all of it, in the cathedral silence of a man's interior life, the original wound "I am not enough as I am" remains perfectly intact, untouched, unfed, because money was never the medicine it needed. You have to trace the messaging. And the messaging is everywhere. From childhood, boys absorb a hierarchical framework of masculine worth. At the top, the provider, the protector, the man of means. Studies in developmental psychology show that by age 7 boys can articulate the belief that men are supposed to take care of women financially. They learn it from fathers, from films, from the invisible curriculum of observation. And then adolescence arrives, and the framework crystallizes. The boy who can buy things for his girlfriend gains status. The boy who can't is quietly, systematically diminished, not always by girls, but often by other boys. The hierarchy polices itself. And now, in the age of social media, the messaging has reached an almost satirical intensity. An entire ecosystem of content spanning dating coaches, lifestyle influencers, and viral opinion culture reinforces a single, devastating thesis: your value as a man is measurable, and the unit of measurement is dollars. If he wanted to, he would. A real man provides. You can tell how much he loves you by how much he spends on you. These phrases circulate with the velocity and certainty of proverbs. They are presented not as opinions, but as natural law, and millions of men scrolling at midnight absorb them as confirmation of what they already feared, that love has a price and they are perpetually underpaying. Paid a ransom to someone who wasn't even holding me hostage. Sit with that sentence, because it contains the entire architecture of the validation tax in 12 words. The captor is not the woman across the table. It never was. The captor is the belief system, inherited, internalized, and invisible, that says his presence is insufficient, that he must add something to himself to be worthy of being chosen, that love, for him, is not a gift to be received, but a verdict to be earned. The women on the other side, and here the documentary must do something uncomfortable. It must complicate the narrative, because the validation tax is not a story with clear villains and simple victims. It is a system, and systems implicate everyone inside them. This is a critical point, and it demands precision. The validation tax is not caused by women. It is not caused by men. It is caused by an inherited, mutually reinforced belief system in which both genders participate, often unconsciously, often against their own interests. Women who reduce men to their financial output dehumanize the very partners they claim to want. Men who reduce themselves to their financial output erase the very qualities, presence, vulnerability, emotional courage that actually sustain love. Both sides are robbed. The validation tax has no beneficiaries, only payers. The breaking point comes differently for every man. For some, it's a number, a credit card statement, a collections notice, a declined transaction at the worst possible moment. For others, it's a realization, the slow, sickening dawn of understanding that the love they thought they were building was actually a transaction they were funding. And the moment the funding stops, the love might stop too. And if the love stops when the money stops, it was never love. She left anyway, after 6 months, after honestly, probably $8,000–9,000 he didn't have. She left because, and these are her exact words, she didn't feel a real connection. And he thought, how? How is there no connection? I gave you everything, and then it hit him. He gave her everything, except himself. She got the performance. She got the gifts and the dinners and the gestures. She got the version of him that was trying to be worth something, but she never got the actual person. Because he was so busy proving he deserved to be there, that he never actually was there. That's the tax. That's the real cost. It's not the money. It's the self you never show because you're too afraid it won't be enough. And there it is. The insight beneath the insight. The deeper wound beneath the financial one. The validation tax is not ultimately a financial problem. It is an identity crisis expressed through spending. It is the monetization of self-doubt. It is what happens when an entire gender is taught that their inherent worth is zero, that value must be added, performed, proven, and purchased, and then released into a culture that confirms that teaching at every turn. The money is just the symptom. The disease is the belief that you, as you are without the car, without the watch, without the restaurant, without the proof, are not enough. The answer is not austerity. It's not stop spending on your partner. Generosity, freely given, is one of the most beautiful expressions of love available to a human being. The question is not whether you give. The question is why? And the distance between those two answers, between I give because I want to and I give because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't, is the distance between intimacy and transaction, between love and purchase, between a relationship and a hostage negotiation with yourself. The work, and it is work, make no mistake, is learning to tolerate being seen without your wallet open. It's learning to sit across from someone and believe, genuinely believe, that your attention, your humor, your curiosity, your presence in the room is the gift. Not a consolation prize until you can afford the real one. The actual gift. Financial therapists recommend what they call a values auditor process, in which you examine every significant purchase in a relationship and ask a single question: would I still feel secure in this relationship if I hadn't bought this? If the answer is no, if your sense of worth in the relationship is contingent on the transaction, then you're not giving a gift. You're paying an invoice, and the invoice is a lie. The honesty that is the gift she actually wanted. Not the necklace, not the weekend trip, the truth. Tonight, across this city, across every city there, are men reaching for their wallets with one hand and gripping their self-worth with the other. Men who have confused generosity with audition. Men who have mistaken a dinner reservation for a down payment on being loved. And across from them, there are people partners, dates, lovers who would trade every bottle of overpriced wine for a single honest sentence: I'm here. I'm scared. And I want you to know me, not the version of me that can afford this, but the actual me. The one who's still learning that he might be enough. The validation tax is not a bill that arrives in the mail. It's a story you tell yourself, a story so old and so constant that you mistake it for the truth. The story says, you must earn this, you must prove this, you must buy your way into deserving love. But love, real love, the kind that survives and sustains and transforms, has never once, in the entire history of human experience, been successfully purchased. It has only ever been offered and received. Freely, vulnerably, without a receipt. The most expensive thing you will ever give someone is the belief that you aren't enough without your money. And the most valuable thing you will ever give someone costs nothing at all. The validation tax is not what you spend on love, it's what you lose of yourself trying to afford it.
Thanks for watching. If you made it this far and found this insightful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next video next Friday.